India-US aviation landscape. And to take this session forward, may I please present you the session chair. We have with us Mr. Vikram Rai, Country Head, South Asia and Indonesia, GE Aviation. May I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, and may I request you to please introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining. First of all, I'd like to welcome our Chief Guest, Dubey, sir. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for taking out your time. Thank you, Mehnaz, for joining in, and our co-panelist, Sandeep Bahal, who's the Executive Program Director, US-India Aviation Cooperation Program. We have Mr. Kamal Durrani, who's the Chief Customer Officer for SpiceJet, and Mr. Subhash Srinivas, who's the Senior Corporate Planner of Coacher and Company. I probably, this session is back, so I'll quickly kick off the session, and then probably we'll get some thoughts from my co-panelists, and then a final thoughts from Dubey and Mehnaz. So, I mean, as I reflect back on the 75 years of Indo-US aviation cooperation, I mean, what I see is how the civil aviation landscape, civil aviation has grown in India. I mean, just reflect back 10, 15 years ago, anybody who had to go to Bombay from a tier 2 city like a Chandigarh or Ludhiana had to come to Delhi and then take a connecting flight to Bombay. Similarly, I mean, interesting coincidence, I mean, some of my family has now moved to hinterlands like in Fagwara, and then they had to come to Singapore, they had to fly to Delhi, catch a train, go by bus, go by car, go there. Now they are now flying to Amritsar, Singapore, Amritsar, taking a car ride of an hour and a half, and this is how, the government with its, pro-civil aviation policies has developed tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 connectivity in a manner that, everything is accessible, available, and the connectivity is improving day by day. There is a massive spend on airport infrastructure. All of that is going very smoothly. And now I talk about, how US and India have aligned on civil aviation. About, say, 15 years back, we used to have 150 to 200 aircrafts only in India. Today, we have 700 aircraft plus operational. More than 700 aircrafts are on order. The opportunity size, to give you some background, the India middle class population is equal to the entire population of US. US has close to 4,500 aircrafts and India has just 700 aircrafts. Today, if you see on those 700 aircrafts, we have, every aircraft, if you see, will have a US content on it. Either it will be a Boeing powered aircraft, or it will be a GE powered aircraft, or it will be a CFM powered aircraft. CFM, as you know, is a joint venture of GE, or it will be a Pratt powered aircraft, again a US company. So you probably have, I think, probably close to 100% content will have, aircraft will have a US content. And I think US companies have realized the importance of Indian civil aviation. Today, each and every US aerospace company is present in India in a big way. There is a lot of Make in India push. I can speak for GE. We have one of the biggest research centers outside of US based in India. We got an MRO based in India. We've invested heavily into supply chain management. So all of that, I think all aviation companies are really fully focused on this. So with that, let me kick off this session, hand it over to Sandeep. Sandeep, as you know, is an Executive Program Director for US-India Aviation Cooperation Program. Sandeep, would like to know your thoughts, how this relationship has developed, how you've seen the US-India cooperation expanding. What are your thoughts on going forward as a sector in civil aviation? Some of your thoughts, given that you work with a lot of US companies coming into India.
Thank you, Vikram. A very good opening. I really appreciated the time that you have taken and to explain about the sectors that you've been flying around Punjab to connect to from Fagwara or to Chandigarh. So you can see this ecosystem in India when it comes to civil aviation has grown, and it's as Vikram has mentioned, there are a lot more new airports and infrastructure development that's going through today. So specific to US-India aviation-related issues, in both the countries in this 75 years of independence are looking to cooperate with each other. US-India Aviation Cooperation Program that both US government and India government has initiated in 2007 continues to explore these kind of opportunities for both, for the sharing of the best practices in civil aviation for India as well as for US. And this interchange program is continues to grow in past 14 years. And in this year especially, we have noticed 2 or 3 specific opportunities that both the countries can relish, especially when this COVID situation has gone past us. Before I dwell into it, I know Kamal is here too. I just want to mention a thing that we have noticed. Today, so I was just going through some statistics that I received, checked on OAG, and they had this fresh data, which is the latest one for June. Between India and US, the traffic of about 230,000 passengers that went through, most of it was not on US carrier or on Indian carrier. Only 88% of the traffic went through a third country. So one of the largest opportunity I see in cooperation between US airlines and Indian carriers, and how this can materialize, because there are opportunities. India and US is one of the first countries with the open skies arrangement. So bilaterals, there are no restrictions. It's just and there's demand, right? We can see the demand. So one of the areas that want to look into it very seriously, and I hope Kamal and his team will be talking about this too. The second part that I look at it, in my 4 years in India, I have noticed, of course, COVID is there, but the sustainability, the profitability in Indian civil aviation. That's where the US can come and picture and assist a lot of Indian carriers. As you can see, from 2010 to 2019, US carriers were all very profitable. The profits were on the tune of almost $10 billion cumulative among all together with these airlines. Now, looking at that way, and even after COVID, right now, if you look at the quarter 1 and 2 results that came out from US carriers, most of them are showing profitability anyway. So there's one area that US carriers or the US companies can show to India or Indian carriers how we can get into this profitability or sustainability mode. We have also looked at areas where general aviation is pretty weak in India compared to the US, and I know there are efforts in place today to get more of the helicopter services, more of the connectivity that goes in the hinterland. And US, as you have noticed, only has, there's an act there which is called Essential Air Services Act. I think this is something what we can also look at in India, how to entice airlines to start servicing the hinterlands. Krishi Udan and Udan scheme that Mr. Dubey and his team has organized is doing wonders. There's the last statistics were showing almost 1 million customers have already traveled on the Udan scheme. But there are further opportunities. The costs have to be reduced down, and one of the things that the US can show how these regional airports can survive with a very low cost base. And they use some of the techniques just like micro towers or remote control towers that reduces the overall cost of operating those areas. So just to sum it up, and I can also come back and talk, one of the areas that US can and India, both of them can work together, is on the airlines profitability side. I see the general aviation as an opportunity for India to learn from US how they have developed it. Hub development, this third country traffic that's going through, this is the one of the area that US can showcase how the hub development can work in India. I also want to say about this component repairs and manufacturing. As Vikram, you mentioned, we talk a lot about MROs and all, but we have to also look at the new ways how the aircrafts and the engines are being fixed today, whether it's really a repair part or is it a component manufacturing. What is important? That's what we have to dwell into it. And overall aviation sustainability, whether it's we all talk about the environment issues and all, and of course US has its own challenges on that. The one area that I think the US can also learn from India is on the environment sustainability. Some of the airports in India self-sustain. Their ecosystem is pretty strong when it comes to environment issues. And on the digitization. In US, as of today, if you think of it, the customer experience that goes with the digital way, and where India is going ahead with the biometrics and whatnot, those learning for US will also be a greatly opportunity for Indian companies to incorporate in with the US companies. So there's a lot of opportunities that we can all work together, but I don't want to take too much time because there's Mehnaz and Suhas, and also Kamal wanted to say things. So over to you, Vikram. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Very valuable thoughts on, hub development, general aviation, and what US can also learn from here. Thank you. Kamalji, just wanted your thoughts on, typically, tier 2, tier 3 city development, how US companies can help most of this, or is there a specific help you require from the US companies that can really help the airline sector in India, and your thoughts generally on aviation?
Thank you, Vikram. At the outset, thank you, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, for having me on this interesting platform. Sandeep has given a very good summary of where we are in civil aviation, and I guess a lot of opportunities he's identified between India and US. What I would like to mention from civil aviation, from airline perspective, is that for us, Boeing has been a key partner from the very beginning, 17 years old, at SpiceJet, and we value tremendously the relationship we have. In addition to Boeing, with a lot of American companies who've been around to support us, not only us as SpiceJet, but even the civil aviation per se. Specifically, we have a personal and emotional bonding with the US and Boeing. Boeing was the company which came to SpiceJet support way back in 2014 when we had a near shutdown. Subsequently, to bring the MAXes back into operation, we had tremendous support from Boeing, both technical and otherwise. You all are aware that SpiceJet had ordered 155 MAX aircraft 4 years back. And of course, we did get 13 of them before the MAXes were grounded. But that's history, that's past now, and we are again getting our next 7 starting October this year. In addition to just the Boeing support and the Boeing aircraft, I would like to mention of Spice Express, which is our freighter division, and I head Spice Express. We have 5 Boeing freighters converted. We have 5 to 6 more Boeing freighters, converted freighters, that will join us in the rest of the financial year. And this is a profitable part of our business. We are very, very upbeat about cargo and the freighter business. And we look forward to a continued relationship with Boeing and the American companies. The opportunities that I see, other than just the aircraft, and I definitely want to mention Honeywell, Raytheon Collins, Viasat for in-flight connectivity, etc. We've all been engaging with them, and hopefully we will conduct very good business in the immediate future. I think there's an opportunity of technology support from the US, and that can be leveraged beautifully towards mutual advantage. It could be apron and air traffic management. It could be to handle weather towards saving fuel burn, and so on and so forth. One request that I'd like to put across through this platform is that SpiceJet has been the pioneer of sustainability aviation fuel in India, rather in South Asia. We were the first ones to conduct a pilot flight way back 4 years back on a Bombardier aircraft. And since then, we've been trying to get the approval, the ASTM certification from Boeing, because we want to now test it on a Boeing NG aircraft. And it's unfortunate that it's taken almost 3+ years to even get that approval from Boeing. This is the fuel that's provided by IIP Dehradun, which is an established institute producing SAF. And I would like to use this platform. We feel there are non-tariff barriers, and we certainly hope that this platform can help us expedite. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the US Embassy, who's been very, very supportive to SpiceJet. We have sent 3 batches of our pilots for pilot training in Miami, and the embassy has been extremely supportive in granting visas and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you for your thoughts. I think thank you for mentioning the support you had from Boeing, the business that cargo and the health needed. So thank you very much. We'll pass this on to Boeing. Suhas, we wanted to get your views on the regulatory landscape of civil aviation in India, some Indo-US alliances, treaties in civil aviation that you work. What's that landscape? What are you looking at going in future? How does that look like?
Thank you, Vikram, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with my distinguished and esteemed co-panelists today. So I think, Vikram, what I will do is speak a little bit about how the regulatory and the legal landscape looks for Indo-US civil aviation today and in the future. So I think firstly, India and US have both been signatories and have ratified the major international conventions relating to civil aviation, including, the Chicago Convention of 1944, which deals with establishing a safe and orderly manner in which international air transport services should be undertaken on the basis of equality of opportunity and sound economic operations. So basically, the Chicago Convention lays the groundwork and forms the backbone for the air transport agreement, which has been signed between the governments of India and US. And I will deal with the air transport agreement a little later as part of my talk. The second convention that both India and the US are signatories to, and which convention has also been ratified, is the Warsaw Convention of 1929, which deals generally with transportation and frames the rules relating to ticketing, what should be in the passenger ticket, the luggage ticket, the air consignment note, and so on. The Warsaw Convention has, of course, been modified and consolidated as part of the Montreal Convention in 1999, which again, the India and the US are signatories to. Additionally, India and the US are also signatories to the conventions relating to safety on board the aircraft and persons and property of the aircraft, which is basically the Tokyo Convention of 1963, as well as the basis which forms the anti-hijacking and terrorism rules, which is the Hague Convention of 1970. So these are the main conventions that both India and US are signatories to. And as I mentioned earlier, there is an air transport agreement between the US and India. Sandeep has also mentioned about it. So I will get into a little bit of specifics relating to this agreement. I think the first thing to mention is that this is a completely liberalized, forward-looking, modern air services and air transport agreement. This was signed in 2007 between the India and US, I think on April 4, 2005. This replaced the earlier agreement signed in 1956. And I think India signed its first open skies agreement with the US. So I think that lays the importance that India has with respect to US and cooperation on the civil services and civil aviation side. The main features of this agreement are that there could be multiple designations of airlines on both sides. So either side can designate any number of airlines to participate in air transport. So this gives a lot of opportunities both from airlines on the US side as well as the Indian side. There is no restriction on frequency or capacity. All the earlier restrictions which were there in the 1956 agreement have been removed. There's also no restriction on point of call, which means that any airline of either country can operate to any point which they think is commercially viable. And there's no restriction on exercise of freedom traffic rights through any intermediate point and to beyond points as well. So, there could be landing in Europe and then going further on to India and then Southeast Asia as well if required. There's no restriction on establishment of offices by airlines in either countries. So, any number of offices can be established for promotion and sale of air transport services. There's no restriction on cargo flights either, and traffic from one aircraft can be transferred to another aircraft at any point on the route. So gives the scope for code sharing between airlines, and there is also no restriction on code sharing itself, as well as tie-ups between domestic airlines of other countries. So I think this is a very liberalized, modern, forward-looking agreement that the two countries have signed. And this will only increase the frequency of air traffic between the two countries. We already have Air India and United Airlines operating direct flights between the two countries. I think, New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, New York, and San Francisco are already connected. American Airlines has announced that it's going to start a direct Seattle and Bangalore flight. This was announced during the pandemic, but it has still not been operational, and it's expected to get operational either later this year or early next year. So after the Open Sky Agreement, I think briefly I want to touch upon Indian rules on foreign investment in the aviation sector, and mostly all the activities are either under 100% automatic route or in fairly sensitive sectors like air transport services, that is scheduled air transport services. The foreign investment is restricted to 49%, but can go up to 100% with government approval. And for NRI investment, it's already under 100% automatic route, which means that there's no need to get any prior government approvals to be engaged in these activities. Non-scheduled air transport services, of course, is under 100% automatic. So is helicopter services and seaplane services. Sandeep had also touched upon this, and I think this is a sector for investment in the future. And we already know that in the airports, both greenfield and brownfield projects are under 100%. So are ground handling services and setting up MRO activities and so on. So I think, overall, the Indian government has tried to attract a lot of foreign investment in the sector by keeping most of them under 100% automatic route for foreign investment. So in the future, we would expect that American companies would take advantage of these liberalized schemes of the government and further invest in India and in Indian companies. That's about it from my side, Vikram. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's very informative what you just talked about. Mehnaz, thank you for joining. I mean, you've been associated with this sector for, I think, more than a decade, if I'm not wrong. And, you've been really closely associated with the sector and the US aviation companies. So your thoughts on, how things are developing, given that you've seen this sector from a nascency stage to something which is developing at a fast pace. How do you see the US India aviation cooperation going on? What are the US companies going on? And what are the challenges that you see still in our civil aviation structure that we should overcome? And any other thoughts based on what you've seen over the last 10+ years?
Thank you, Vikram. And at the outset, thank you, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, for including me in your 19th iteration of the summit. It's indeed very interesting to go in the first technical session of the summit and hear from the experts and the stalwarts who have been in the industry for so long and the challenges which they are facing on the ground. So I think the comments were made by Mr. Suhas and Kamal from SpiceJet are the real challenges which are on the ground. From a Mission India, US Embassy India perspective, we are totally committed to the cooperation. And I think one of the most outstanding cooperations with India over the last 75 years, and certainly for the 3 decades, has been in civil aviation. Thanks to the American companies and then thanks to the business which you guys do with India and the technologies which you bring in. And the other is the establishment of US-India Aviation Cooperation Program, which we from US Trade and Development Agency introduced in 2007, and Sandeep leading that initiative in India and with Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for almost 2 decades now, really demonstrates the outstanding cooperation which exists between US and India, especially in civil aviation. And Vikram, to your point on where do we see over the last 3 decades, we started our work in India in 2000 and 40 programs as being the project preparation agency of US government and doing infrastructure development projects in South Asia. I have seen that this is the cooperation, this is the partnership and collaboration in the region and probably at this point globally, which really stands out amongst others. And why I say it stands out amongst others is not because of a lot of big talk which happens, but a lot of work which happens on the ground. And I think your initial comments of the change, which we all see as consumers of this sector on the ground, of the connectivity, of the improvisation of airports, of the safety security parameters, of the new technologies being incorporated. I think a lot of background work in terms of cooperation, collaboration, training, and most importantly, breaking the silos of the various stakeholders who have been involved, be it the safety regulator working, DGCA working with FAA, or the security regulator, BCAS working with the TSA, our Transport Security Administration. We looking at things from the trade and development side, or our commerce team, which is actually also bringing in a trade delegation towards the middle of this month, and some of you will be involved in this. I think the cooperation and collaboration from air navigation services, from safety elements and safety developments, including the retaining of India's status as a safe player and direct flights. Sandeep made a very important mention, the importance of airlines and the direct connectivity, because just by the sheer volume of the number of visas which we issue for US from the mission here speaks volumes of the amount of cooperation in business and trade which happens between both countries. So there are lots of statistical parameters as well as diplomatic relationship parameters which we can see, which highlight the importance of continued and increased cooperation, as India is also trying to come back from the COVID-19 impact, and all of us from US also, we are trying to come back from the impact and trying to be more efficient. And I totally agree with Sandeep that there's a lot of learning on both sides which has to happen. And the most recent learning which we saw and we were able to deliver from our US Trade and Development Agency programmatic perspective, we are bringing in a significant amount of program funding for aviation sector from US, is the recently concluded Executive Development Training Program. We picked up the 25 key professional leaders of India's civil aviation, brought them into a training of with the companies on the next step. So looking 5 to 10 years ahead, what are the challenges and what are the cooperations which will be needed? One of the important element in India part of the training which happened in July was on sustainable aviation fuel. So not only bringing in the civil aviation fraternity or talking on SAF and talking on the blending and the mixing which has to be permitted, also from a perspective of what the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas in India is doing and the related agencies are doing. And I think GE being in the room, Vikram, with the engine manufacturers, that's an important conversation which we have across on the climate, resilience, sustainability. And civil aviation, once again, shows the way of how this cooperation and collaboration can be successful. The other element which has been very important and of continued importance is the digitization and the increased importance of digitization. After everything and almost all the world has opened up, I think as a matter of choice, today we are doing this session by virtual platform so that all of us can join from wherever we are. And there are now various new normals which have evolved, which also the civil aviation sector is trying to adjust globally. And indeed, as a traveler between US and India, frequently I see that there's a lot which US can learn from India in terms of airports, in terms of sustainability of airports, in terms of all the other elements which we do. And finally, I would say that it's very important that the dialogue continues. There are challenges on the airline side. General aviation has been an area which for some reason has been it has to be brought up. I would not say it is ignored, but it has to be brought up more on the center for discussion. Our Ministry of Civil Aviation has been the center for a lot of navigating and leading this dialogue to a next gen sort of a development, working with Airport Authority of India on many unique and new projects. We know that's from a centralized navigation system project with Boeing or a sustainable airport project with Landrum & Brown, all subjects of a modernized and a highly futuristic looking civil aviation means key to India. And it is equally important for US and the US mission here, as well as for US Trade and Development Agency. So we are very happy to conclude, in fact, on the eve of 75th Independence Day celebration of India, we concluded our EDTP program in Washington, which was itself a landmark. And I would just add to say that we will be bringing more trainings. Not only do we break the silos by talking to each other, we also break the silos by helping our Indian counterparts and our Indian private and public sector talk to each other. And we'll also be planning to do a summit and continue to do projects in emergency management response systems, digitization, more airlines, more airports, more connectivity, and we look forward to this collaboration. Thank you once again for this opportunity and look forward to the readouts of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehnaz. I think the comment of how it turned out to be a global best practice of breaking silos, the program funding or training and the focus on sustainability. That's great. So, Amberji, thank you for joining us. I must admit, I've been listening to almost all of your, seminars, etc. Whenever I have a chance to attend, way back 10, 12 years as a fanboy, as I had my journey of civil aviation. So, I won't ask your thoughts on a specific topic. I leave it open to you. What do you want to speak? How do you want to address this? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Vikram, and a very good afternoon and a good day to all our friends who have joined us across the world. And at the outset, I would like to thank Indo-American Chambers for organizing this. It's always a matter of pleasure and honor to be speaking here amidst so many luminaries. It's also a little surreal to be referred to as a chief guest because we are all used to being backbenchers and quietly coming, enjoying the good food at ISCC. And then just walking off and maybe making our 10 minutes of fame as a speaker. So it's a little surreal. Also because 5 days from now, I'll be completely unemployed. My tenure at MOCA gets over. So I'll be back again in the industry. That is provided somebody is willing to have me as an employee. So my tenure ends on this Friday. So some of you will get my CV. So please be very kind. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll praise you a lot so that then you can feel very happy and then praise me back, and we all go back on a happy note. Okay, on a serious note, why be serious? Let's have fun. See, in the airlines, the problem of speaking after Sandeep and Kamal and Mehnaz is there's I had some 20 slides of presentations, but I think 19 out of 20 slides are already now spoken about. So they've taken all the bang away from my 5 minutes of fame. I don't know what to speak. That's number one. Number two, also, Vikram, I love your office. Do call us sometime for a cup of coffee. I mean, you see the grandeur in which you're sitting. I'm sure this is not your home office, but your actual office. This is some office.
Always welcome. We are on a campaign right now. We've rented this place. So I'll share with you offline what campaign we are working on, and then I can. Well, welcome to okay. 10 minutes away from your office. So more than welcome to host you here.
Right. Great. So since people have actually paid $50 for this session, so might as well we get to some real airline airport conversation. See, first of all, I think kudos to all of us. If we were in a hall, I would have requested all of you to just clap for yourself, because the way we have fought back against this huge once in a century, I mean the worst year in a century kind of a phenomenon, the COVID thing, and went dragged on for another year. And the aviation and airline and aerospace people, we are doughty fighters. We've been like that for hundreds of years. We are warriors. We fought back. We didn't shy down. We got the gloves and the RT-PCR kits and the gloves to the farthest of the Nagalands or the Mizorams and Tripuras and Andamans. Never once did you hear of any dirty tweet saying, hey, we are in Andaman and we are praying for this rubber gloves, or we've run out of PPE suits, because somebody out there and people on this call and off the call were the ones who were working when there were no flights operating. The aviation sector was still buzzing and we were still flying planes, albeit, of course, half-filled planes full of cargo, chartered flights, military flights, collaborating with military helicopters and taking those kits to the last mile. So that over the 2 years, never once did we sleep. 24/7, we were all working, and we helped the world fight against this huge pandemic. So kudos to all of you, number one. Number two, we are also fighters, so we have fought back on the domestic side. So almost we've reached about 85 to 90% of the pre-COVID numbers, and hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll start hitting the magic 4 lakh per day, 400,000 per day number on an average. Today, we just hit it once in a while, but I'm sure we're looking forward to the winter session, the winter season, which is our peak season, and hopefully with God's blessings, we should cross that number also. That opens up a lot of opportunities for Indo-American collaboration, for American businesses. On the ATC side, again, the pipe will get more and more congested. So again, lots of ATC, and now with 5G coming in, there's so many solutions, none of which, I mean, none of us have the wisdom to even foresee what 5G, just as we couldn't have imagined what internet or mobiles could have done 20, 30 or 40 years back. What 5G will open up is a completely an open games, makes it so exciting to be in aviation at this juncture. So I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration there. On the aircraft front, Sandeep has already mentioned the 700 odd that we had is a pittance. I mean, even the smallest of the big four in China would have more than 700 aircraft. So inshallah, we will grow to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. And I'm sure our friends from Boeing always come up, Salil comes up with these nice projections of 2030, 2040, and how the world will look like. None of us will be around at that time, but it all looks very rosy. So again, another very big opportunity for us to collaborate there. SpiceJet's has bet big on Boeing, and I'm sure many more will follow. Akas is also coming, and this number will only grow for American businesses. On the airport side, the big tsunami comes in 23, 24, and 25. Next year onwards, we'll see some of those huge investments that we made over the last 3, 4, or 5 years. We did have a setback because of COVID, but we call it the positive tsunami. There'll be so much all along in all the previous, when I used to come in as a consultant and used to make the same slides over and over and bore people to death. We were using the same challenges about congested airspace, congested this and congested airports and slots not available, peak slots. 20 out of 24 hours in a day have become peak slots in Indian airports. Now, all that hard work and the pain and the frustration and the good money brought in by many of you is now going to start seeing the fruits. The harvest time comes 23 next year, 24 and 25, when bulk of these, the Mumbai second, the Delhi second airport, Mumbai second airport, Goa second airport is now opening up. All the proving flights are happening right now. And Vizag second airport, and also the Bangalore and Hyderabad airports, all the expansion programs, all these will see the light of day now, opening up tremendous amount of slots for our airlines, and which will only bring down the prices and yet make it profitable for airlines. And that will bring in so much more business for all of us to enjoy. With that is also again ATC Solutions, and also Mehnaz spoke about the USTDA collaboration and Gagan, because as we go into Uran, the regional connectivity scheme, which has been a flagship program of the ministry, because our principles are very clear now. Anything which is commercial will be done by commercial entities. So government will not do it. That's why we sold off, leased out bulk of our major airports. We have sold out completely from Air India. We don't even keep even 1% or even a golden share in Air India. Everything's gone. And most of the other assets, Pawan Hans and the other subsidiaries of Air India, and of course our IGUA, which is our training school, all those will be given out, because anything, the vision of the government is very clear. Anything, everybody will do what they are suited for and prepared for and trained for. Commercial activity is not something which falls in the realm of the government. The government's job is only to govern and ensure public welfare. So anything which is public welfare, we'll of course focus on it. Of course, the private industry also does the same, but that's our primary focus. And anything which is commercial activity will be done by commercial people, which is the industry and the research and the academicians and so on and so forth. It's best done by them. So as part of that, we'll be in Uran, and that too is a time-limited scheme. So there is a sunset clause. So there also we are bringing in the subsidy element, because we know it's unviable for airlines to fly. It's to force them to fly to some smaller airports. We tried that earlier, it failed. So then we realized that at the end of the day, we got to make the books match. So the government will have to pay. This is taxpayers' money, and in fact, it's collected from passengers and given back to passengers. Okay, so it's a self-funding scheme. Again, it's done entirely by the aviation ecosystem. So again, a round of applause to all of us. Okay, because we are not taking any money from the government, other than of course infrastructure development, which in a small town on a small airport, the airport infrastructure cannot be expected. You can't expect a GMR or a Zurich or a Prem Vatsa to come and develop those small airports, which may not be commercially viable. So for those places, just like Indian Railways or State Bank of India or the post offices of India Post, we will spend money to develop the infrastructure there. But on the operating cost and paying the incentive to the airlines or the subsidy, it's all earned from passengers on the trunk route and then passed on to passengers. So it's airlines paying airlines effectively. So also in Udan, just a small correction. Our good friend Sandeep did mention about 1 million person. He was wrong just by 10 times. So till last night, 10.6 million people have flown. I remember, yes, this 1 million was a number we used to jokingly speak at that time, way back in 16 and 17, when the 5 years back, oh gosh, it's been 5 years, you don't realize 5 years. At that time, a lot of people as cynics used to actually ask, will it even touch 1 million people? So till last night, it's been 10, and we update the daily data every day. We are one of few countries. In fact, we would say amongst the top 20 aviation powers, India is the only country which actually puts out traffic data, OTP data, and thank you, Kamal, for sending on the data at 6:30 a.m. every day. So religiously at 7:30, the reports are prepared, and by 9 or 9:30, it's uploaded on our website for anybody to see without a login ID, password, or any rental charges or access charges. We must be the only country amongst the top 20 to be putting out last night's traffic data and lots of even grievances data with name and shame gallery also, where we name the top 6 people who have the maximum number of complaints. It comes on our website every day. So please do have a look, and it's on Google. You don't even need to login ID, have a login ID or password. Civil military collaboration again is a very big area. Again, huge opportunity for Boeing and all the engine manufacturers, because it's the same platforms which are used both ways, Boeing P-8I and Boeing 737 here. So we need to step it up. As usual, Salil will always say we are doing so much, but we don't get credit. Government will say you are doing a pittance as compared to the huge market, the 1.4 billion people that we've opened up to you, and what you're doing, what you're sourcing, or what you're taking from India, what you're giving back to India as a pittance. Reality is always somewhere in between. So we'll keep our stand. Salil and team will keep their own stand. Ashmita will give her own story. But the reality is in between. But we should move more towards more and more collaboration, because see that this government is very watchful. We track every number. Okay, so the more and more sourcing we do out of India, the more and more jobs we create. This all comes down to GI Joe, as I keep jokingly telling Salil and team. It's about GI Joe. G stands for growth, I for investments, and Joe for jobs. Okay, let's just focus on GI Joe. And
this meeting is being recorded.
I don't know, did Salil pull the plug here? Or?
You're back.
Are we back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Okay. I thought Salil or Ashmita or somebody would have pulled the plug.
See, I'm the most reasonable of the 3.
And he's not here, so we can speak ill about him behind his back. So I'm sure he and his team is watching. And this is getting recorded anyways. Okay, very quickly, another 2-3 minutes. Manufacturing, again, we've just spoken. As I said, huge opportunity for collaboration. We're just scratching not even the surface. The more we do here, the more goodwill we create, the more good things and follow out of that. Yes, there are collaborations. Yes, good things are happening in Hyderabad and Nagpur and various other places. But I think we can do at least 10 times more. Flying training, FTOs, big focus area for this government. It is tracked right at the PMO. And every month we give an update on the FTO, because now it's tracked by the ministry. Earlier it was supposed to be just another regulatory activity being done by the industry and being regulated by DGCA and the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. But now ministry is tracking it directly. And you've already seen about, we were just 34 FTOs in 75 years until March of this year. 9 more are adding by December this year, and 6 more by next year. So 15 more, 34 in 75 years. 34 in 75 years. In fact, 100 years, because some of the old FTOs come back from JRD Tata's time when Mumbai Flying Club gave him the license, Bombay Flying Club. And just 15, half of that is going to come up in the just next 2 years, of which 4 have already been inaugurated, and by September, and the one in Belgavi will also be started by Redbird. So again, these are Cessnas, and many of these are American aircraft. Huge opportunity there for collaboration, not just on the hard part, but also on the soft part. So some of the best practices, a lot of joint ventures, because some of the schools in US which were getting these direct recruits from Indigo and other airlines, please note that gradually this will be brought down, because that's part of our policy. It's part of our Make in India, Serve in India, Train in India, Repair in India scheme. So the earlier we collaborate, the better it is. Huge opportunity on the ATO side, the SIMS. And I just the other day met another American company which has come here, Avengers, not the Avengers fame, but Avenger from Miami. And they, I think, are setting up 2 new SIMs, both in Delhi and Mumbai, both for Boeing and some of the competing airlines, and maybe even defense. They're talking to them. So huge opportunity on the training front, because more the traffic, more the aircraft means more pilots. More pilots means more SIMs and more trainer aircraft. So it's the entire chain, and no country in the world is going to grow the way we are growing. No country is as open for foreign collaboration and investments as we are. So after China, I won't even say after China. I mean, how much can you do in China beyond a point? I mean, there are issues there. But so I would rate India as the biggest market that is available to the entire world. So please come and make the most of it. We also have an aviation university. There's lots we can do to have joint courses there. There was some chat which happened with Emery Riddle with the help of some of you. But somewhere it goes into the usual things about how much we do here, how much outside, how much in Miami, how much in Singapore, and what should be the cost, because cost for an Indian student is an important issue. So maybe offline with USTDA, ACP, ISEC, we can see if there's some way to bring in the best of the best, because this has even come up in a parliament committee, surprise, surprise, where some of the parliamentarians asked that, why aren't you collaborating with some of the top American companies, because they're so far ahead in aviation. And if we want to aspire to become a big one, why don't we collaborate? So huge opportunity there. I'll quickly come on the drone side, which is actually my department looks after drones. Again, I would just be repetitive. I say it's a huge opportunity because we're not even at the surface. I mean, forget scratching the surface. We haven't even reached the surface. There's so much that will happen already on the survey side, military side, agriculture side. The huge use cases are happening. The type certification is happening. One of them, the empaneled type certification labs, UL is again a very famous American company. So on certification, on R&D, on aerospace, defense, agriculture, search and rescue, I can just go on and on. There's so many avenues to collaborate. In February this year, we banned the import of drones, which means and also remove the FDI limit. So any American company can come and set up a 100% entity here or get into a collaboration, but just exporting to India will not work. I mean, this was done for certain reasons, security reasons against one of our friendly neighbors, but the ban applies to all. So the best way is to, and some collaborations already happening. A lot of American private equity companies are already investing in the Indian market. We would also request to have some of the manufacturing and design companies to come, and service providers to come and collaborate with Indian companies, or you set up your own 100% owned companies. We'll be very, very happy to have that. Linked to drones is the next frontier, which is the AAM, not the Aam Aadmi Party, which rules my half state, but it's the Advanced Air Mobility, drone taxis for short. And the drone taxis will ultimately move in the same corridors or separate corridors. And in some places, they'll overlap with the corridors of the regular commercial aircraft. So again, huge opportunity for both designers, for R&D, for safe operations, safety systems, and air navigation, collaboration, etc. America is far ahead in these, and we'll be very happy to learn from both from the researchers, the developers, the designers, and also collaboration with FAA. Thanks to USTDA and the US Embassy, we've had quite a few sessions with some of the experts from FAA and outside FAA who are brought in, and it was some very useful exchange of thoughts. I hope that continues. Last part is on the training part. We have something called a Mission Karmyogi, under which it's a PM-led initiative wherein Mr. Adil Zainul Bhai, who used to be ex-McKinsey for 35 years, used to head McKinsey, Washington, DC, and various other offices, etc. He's been handpicked and made the head of the Mission Karmyogi. It's under something called a capacity building commission. It's a commission like our Union Public Service Commission or Vigilance Commission or Election Commission. Is completely independent, and their job is to work with different ministries and see how capacity can be built, both by in-house, external, foreign, Indian, getting foreign trainers, Indian trainers, etc., etc. Huge opportunity again. Mehnaz just spoke about that, and we thank Mehnaz and her team for all the collaboration that she's been doing on the capacity building part. It's just that we have to now take this to 10x, 20x, and 50x, because the better the knowledge of the government officers and the various regulators are, because sometimes the world moves faster than the governments and the regulators, because we are so inundated. I can't show you my table, but it's inundated with paper. Okay, so we need capacity building. One of those was also the ITP. It's a unique experiment tried by Civil Aviation Ministry, which is called the Intensive Training Program, ITP. We've already done 2 rounds of training wherein we are sending government officers every 6 months. It's mandated that every 6 months you spend a week, minimum a week, inside a private sector company. So Indigo, airports, and SpiceJet and Celebi, so many companies have offered their services. We're very thankful to them, and we would like to do the same thing with Boeing and Lockheed and various other GE and Pratt & Whitney. We send our people once every 6 months. They spend a week with you, they sit with you, they learn, observe, and nothing like experiential training, rather than just making them sit in a classroom and giving them best practices. Same thing happens with DGC and BCAS. First, we are doing it with MOCA, but with DGC and BCAS officers also, we've to come to your offices and spend some time, 5 days, at least Monday to Friday, and I'm sure they'll only become better. There's also talk about SAF and solar. It's not my area, I'm not too knowledgeable, but these are definitely big areas which I keep hearing a lot in the corridors of the ministry. The minister is very young and very dynamic, wants to make a lot of positive differences. I think he's anyway very well engaged with US companies. He's spent a lot of professional years studying and working in the US. So please stay engaged with him. I think he's coming back to US again. And I'll just close by saying that capacity building, I would just reiterate, though I've already spoken about it. Please just focus on that. I know this is time very short because this requires almost like a 1 hour kind of a discussion on the thing. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. As usual, very informative, 10-15 minutes. I just recap the fight back spirit of the sector, slots opening up, prices going down, 10.6 million Udan passenger, the GI Joe Make in India, create jobs. We are just scratching the surface of drones and the advanced air mobility. I hope I captured all those 6-7 bullet points. I was writing in USA. Thank you everyone for. I'll just summarize the key points of the key panelists, which was, I mean, very informative. Sandeep mentioned 230,000 passengers in the US cooperation on the airline section. Kamal mentioned the great support from Boeing and the help needed on sustainability. Suhas mentioned the content and the nature of literalized modern agreements that help bolster cooperation. Obviously, Mehnaz really shared her experience on the Indo-US Aviation cooperation that has been going on, breaking the silos, the program funding, the training they are going on. So,
yes, sir.
I think Parul is missing on the screen. Can you check?
I will just check with Parul. Yes, please. Yes.